Hey Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing fine. We're ready to record another episode of our podcast, and this one's a little different. We've invited our intern Joel Van Buren to join us.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and talk about what he's learned about financial planning from working with us, and give us maybe some inside information we can share with clients about what it's all about.
Yeah, I'm excited for Joel the intern.
Joel the intern.
Happy to be here, guys. Thanks for including me this week.
Yeah, so we've enjoyed working with you since spring now.
Yep.
You want to introduce yourself and let people know where you're from and what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. So I guess just real quick, my name is Joel. I'm a senior at Michigan State right now. I'm majoring in finance, of course, with a minor in international business, as long as I can keep passing French. Um, for anyone listening who is from the immediate Lansing area, I grew up in Charlotte my whole life, and I'm honored to be the first ever intern and podcast guest at Shotwell Rutter Baer.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So, as everybody knows, 2020 has been pretty crazy. One of the last in-person things we did before the wheels fell off the bus back in March was an in-person interview with Joel at the office, and with the expectation we'd have a normal internship where he came in every day for several hours and met clients and shadowed us around the office. And instead, it's been Zoom meetings and phone calls, and some of our clients have gotten to know Joel because he sat in on some of those meetings. But we've really appreciated the fact Joel was able to roll with that. Not really what you'd expected, was it?
No, well, and as I've said, on the other side of things, I've really appreciate that you guys were able to be so flexible with the experience. I don't feel like I've missed out on anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Flexibility.
Other than the office hazing that we had planned for you, that we
Right.
anymore.
Right. So I guess Joel, maybe give us an idea of what you learned this summer and fall. What was the best part about getting involved with financial planning?
The best part, well, to be honest, I guess it just kind of sort of reaffirmed all of my expectations. This is the exact kind of business that I would have hoped to have interned for or work for moving forward. The opportunity to, as I've said to you guys plenty of times now, the opportunity to combine what I'm interested in academically with the opportunity to work closely with people within my community and make a positive difference in their lives. And I think you guys do a great job of that. And it's just, I guess it's just been kind of satisfying to see it in practice firsthand.
Yeah, so I'm glad that this was the kind of experience in the company that you were looking for. But I'm curious, Joel, coming into this, what kind of companies did you know about, or was it a fee-only RIA? Was that something that was even on your radar?
Yeah, so we discussed that before. I wasn't especially aware of the distinction between like a fee-only RIA and like say a broker dealer. I kind of to me the difference wasn't necessarily in the services provided, but just on the scale of the number of the number of people that you worked with or where you worked with them. A small town versus Wall Street, say. But then, kind of one of the first things I learned, you guys had me read that book, The Investment Answer, and a big part of that is the distinction between a broker dealer and a fee-only advisor. And I was kind of surprised to learn that working in this business model, there's the word that Dave has used with me before is it's less transactional. There's kind of in my opinion, a significant reduction in bias. And there's increased transparency as well, I'd say. So that kind of ties into to the first thing I mentioned this is the kind of business model that I would have preferred to have worked for and with. So, and that wasn't a distinction that I was especially aware of before.
Cool. Good. What would you tell fellow students about the experience, and how would your experience here kind of play into how you would talk to other students about what they would do?
Regarding what path to take as far as like what structure of business you'd like to work for?
Yeah, and what kind of experiences to look for to figure out where you want to be.
Well, I guess, the first thing I would say is it really depends on, I guess, what kind of role you want to fill in people's lives and what your goals are in the field. So again, I'll use that word transactional again. If, I'm sure that while I do prefer being a part of this business model, that's not to say that there isn't a place at all for the broker dealer world. Of course, it's huge. So I guess really it depends on if you're more oriented to, maybe you're especially driven by being compensated by performance. So if you want a more transactional experience and you're more driven that way, or if you're more oriented like me, where you want to maybe work more closely with people and take a more active role in their planning rather than just like a passive transaction. That would be, if I were to have that discussion with a peer of mine, that would be the first question I would tell them to ask themselves.
Good. Nick, you want to take the next one?
That would require me looking up what the questions are, but yes. Thanks for Hammond. Cleaning stuff up for me. All right. So, Joel, what was your favorite part of being on the SRB team?
I would say that I felt like I was included in a little bit of everything. Some of my favorite projects have been working in Quantity, which is like, for anybody who's listening that might not be familiar, it's like portfolio or fund analytics software that Dave was nice enough to give me access to. And that was a cool opportunity to apply all of the theory that I learned in class to real portfolios that clients are utilizing. It's not especially complicated. It was just interesting to finally see it in practice and see how those figures are applied. So I've really enjoyed working with that and applying it to the the model scorecard and the investor policy statements that you guys have had me work on. Mm-hmm. I've really enjoyed kind of the progress I've made through the kind of working with and preparing the sustainable investing literature. I think that is that's another thing that I wasn't especially aware of or had heard of at all before I started working with you guys. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth there, both within your business and just at large. I think that's a really interesting field. So I've enjoyed that. And I enjoyed even working with Jeff and Amy on the more administrative stuff, running reports for Amy, just kind of seeing how a lot of the back end stuff operates. I enjoyed that. And something I didn't expect really in working with Jeff, a lot of the compliance stuff, that's not something that I would have thought that I would have been especially interested in going into it. But I don't know, I found it really interesting, and just all of the how thorough he has to be. Mm-hmm. In his, I guess, records, for lack of a better term, to make sure that you guys are compliant. And that's an aspect of the business. Another thing that I wouldn't have considered before, but when he first introduced it to me, it was very daunting. So it's really interesting to see how he tackles that on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, he does a really good job keeping up with that. When you told me that you actually enjoyed that part after you helped Jeff with that, my first reaction was, you will never have a problem finding a career in this industry if you enjoy compliance.
Yeah, so I guess I think I rambled for a bit there, Nick, but to answer your question, I think my favorite part of the experience has been, getting an opportunity to see all of the small functions of the business that might not be immediately apparent, especially when, beforehand I was more familiar with like the glamorized broker-dealer world.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess it's just been a valuable perspective to see how the entirety of the business operates.
Yeah. So on the opposite end of that spectrum, what surprised you the most about this business or this experience?
I'm gonna have to think about that one for a second. Maybe that the planning part of your job is as important, as significant. You spend as much time doing it as the technical aspect. I wouldn't have expected the technical aspect, dealing with dealing with the portfolios and rebalancing them and allocating them. I wouldn't have expected that to be as passive. Mm-hmm. And so the amount of time that you guys have to take throughout your day to juggle particular matters for all of your different clients, like that I would classify as planning, rather than technical work with figures and spreadsheets that I might have imagined before. That was surprising to me, how much of your time is dedicated to researching and finding answers for particular questions that all of the people that you work with have. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you picked up on that, because you're 100% right. The planning is way more important now than the asset allocation, the security selection, all that stuff is just kind of a piece of it. But the planning is really kind of the most important part.
Well, and I think you've told me that's kind of a shift that the industry is taking at large, right? That's not just your business. Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Good. So after you've been kind of involved here for 6 months or so, are there things out there that you think people don't know that they should know about how the financial planning and investment world works? Or
yeah, so the first thing I would say, again, is that distinction between a fee-only advisor and, say, like a broker-dealer. I think that that's a very important distinction to understand, and I know that you guys had an entire podcast. It's been a couple weeks now, I think, but you covered that at length in a whole different episode. I think that's probably the first important distinction to make. I guess I would let people know, like I said, that we just discussed it, but I think what's really important, the most valuable service you offer, is not again this glamorized seeking alpha, providing excess returns, as opposed to just safe, slow, responsible investing. Again, right. I think it's important to take the glamorization out of it. And
yeah. As Warren Buffett's fond of saying, and I always repeat, your investments really should be boring if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
And we fight like several decades of marketing about how exciting it can be. When we talk that way, it's kind of boring, but it really is the truth.
That's a much more eloquent way to put exactly what I was trying to say. I'm sorry, I'm at a loss.
I've had a little more practice than 6 months
I'm
as
sure.
an intern, but yeah. You've
Unfortunately, we're pretty boring when you compare us to the likes of the movie Wall Street, or more recently, The Wolf of Wall Street.
So yeah, I guess I would tell people that boring is good, to answer your question.
Yeah. Good.
I like it.
Good.
So, Joel, we can't let you off the hook without asking you what your least favorite part of the experience was.
Would it be a cop-out answer to say that unfortunately I wasn't able to work with you guys in person? That it was all virtual?
Well,
we didn't get to spend enough time together, is what I'll say.
Sure. No, that's fair. And you know, it's we haven't really talked about it on the podcast at all, but you know, Dave and I have had lots of conversations about what the future holds for financial planning, and you know, for the next year or so, depending on how this all happens, I think it's going to move a lot more virtually, a lot more digitally, and so you know, even though you didn't get that in person, I think you're on a good foot because a lot of the future is probably going to be in meetings on Zoom or what have you. So
yeah, to kind of take that and make it a more substantive answer, I would say that I would have appreciated the opportunity to kind of meet with clients face to face and sort of get a feel for what that's like, because I would imagine it's so much different than you know, what we do over Zoom or Teams.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what this all looks like a year from now. I like to think that there's a new version of Zoom in the near future that will make it a little bit more personal and a little bit more like a full in-person meeting. But you know, we just have to roll with that.
Yeah, I mean, pretty soon it might be a necessity. You know, depending on depending on what happens next, I guess.
Yeah.
So Joel, with your vast amount of experience now and 22-year-old senior, what would you tell freshman Joel coming into Michigan State, thinking about taking the financial planning curriculum there?
That I was pursuing the right thing, to be honest. I get, you know, again, if I'm to be totally transparent, I'll not to knock my school, but something that I've been a bit frustrated with in my business education is that if you pursue finance at Michigan State, you don't even get the opportunity to take a finance class and be familiar with the content until after you have taken several prerequisites in accounting, applied to the business school, and applied to the finance major. So I wasn't able to even explore this avenue until my junior year. And I know several other people who pursued the same career path that I did. And once they actually got there, once they got to their part of their education, you know, the academia, they didn't enjoy it at all. So I was fortunate enough to, once I started actually learning about finance, and once I got the opportunity, you know, to work in the field with you guys, thankfully, I actually enjoy it and I want to commit to this career path. So, but, you know, when I was younger, you know, starting college, there was a lot of hesitation because I didn't get that opportunity immediately. So if I had, you know, I guess if there was one thing to tell myself, it would be that, you know, you're doing the right thing and to keep going. And I think, for me personally, there was a lot of stress because, again, there's kind of a lot of hoops to jump through to pursue finance at Michigan State. There was often a lot of stress about whether or not, you know, I would do good enough in school to make it. And, you know, thankfully I applied myself pretty well early on. So I would tell myself to just to keep going. And I think I'm happy with how things have turned out so far. I think I did the right thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Good.
Well, from our end, what I'll tell you is it's been a real blessing to have you be a part of the team and to continue to be a part of the team after the kind of the formal internship with some of the stuff that you've done with us.
Yep.
You know, we've learned a lot from you and we've really gained from your experience. So just want to thank you for that and for showing up virtually every day and giving it your all and asking a lot of questions. That's been super helpful for us.
Yeah, well, again, I appreciate the opportunity again for you guys to have been so flexible with the experience, because, you know, it might have been kind of daunting for you guys in the first place, just because it was the first time you'd ever offered an internship. So for you guys to have to translate that to a virtual experience so quickly, you know, because I think it was relatively fast. You realized, you know, you're going to have to take those steps to change the experience, and then for you guys to keep me on, especially just because, you know, with everything being online, I'm not as busy, so I appreciate the extra work and the opportunity to keep learning.
Yeah,
and to do things like this. You know, you know, I do some of the back end work for the podcast, and this is not the kind of thing that I ever would have expected to do in a role like this. But it's one of the many steps that just in the past few months that I've worked with you guys that I see you take to growing your business, and I think it's fascinating. So I'm happy to be a part of it.
Very cool.
Well, it's been great having you, and this isn't an exit interview. Joel's still helping us in the background doing some projects during the rest of the year. But you know, we appreciate your insights. I hope it gives other students and maybe some of our clients a little insight into the what goes on in the background with us. But we're glad to have you. And
Thank you.
And you've set a pretty high bar for future interns. So
That's right.
Glad to hear it.
Good. Yeah. So thank you both. I think that'll wrap us up for today. And we will talk to everybody next time.
Yep. Enjoy the holiday, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. Bye.